Auran Shereef show. We're talking about paradox of choice and the famous book by Barry Schwartz called Paradox of Choice, Why More is Less, 2004. So this talk is going to be specifically about paradox of choice, why more is less. So we're going to talk about each section of the book. And basically the overview of this book is the paradox of choice argues that while freedom of choice is an overwhelming abundance of options that can lead to paralysis, anxiety, dissatisfaction rather than happiness. So the book explores how this choice overload increases expectations, leading to disappointment, and introduces the concept of maximizers who seek the best possible option and satisfiers who are content with just good enough. It's a good enough option. And Schwartz suggests that reducing choices and embracing good enough options can lead to greater well-being and satisfaction. Paradox of choice. Now you have too many options and you kind of get sucked into, trapped in the paradox of choice. And go back to what Barry Schwartz was talking about, that he introduces the concept of maximizers, which is, people who seek the best possible option. Meaning if you're on Tinder, you're going to continuously keep swiping and going on an endless amount of dates until you're much, much older and you ran out of time because you simply could not make the choice. So let's talk about the key concepts in the book. I'd like you guys to listen very carefully about this. Very important. Some of the concepts are choice overload, the phenomenon where you're having too many options leads to stress, anxiety, and difficulty making decisions. So you just simply have too many options in the dating pool, and there's just too many people that go on dates, and just too many options. And what happens is, I agree, you get stressed out. You can't really decide who you want to pick or choose as a date or partner, and you become overwhelmed. So that's called choice overload. Second thing is increased expectations. So with more choices, people expect to find a perfect option, leading to disappointment, even when the outcome is objectively good. So for example, let's say you're young, you're going to have an increased expectation because you're going to keep trying to find a perfect guy or perfect partner. What happens in the end is get disappointed, but it's find a perfect match. Like since you have too many choices, it doesn't go that well. And same thing for guys. You could have a lot of choices of women, but if you simply cannot choose, you end up alone. So let's talk about maximizers versus satisfiers. Maximizers are people who strive to make the absolute best choice possible, often leading to analysis paralysis and regret. So if you fall into this category of somebody who's a quote-unquote maximizer, that means all you're trying to do is just find the best possible person there is. That's the best. Who's got the best job, who's got the best money, who's got the best looks, etc. And what ends up happening is you just end up having analysis paralysis and then regret that you could have just chosen someone else that wasn't as good, but at least you're not alone. So that was the second thing, which is people who are called satisfiers. And satisfiers are people who are content with finding an option that meets their needs rather than searching for the absolute best. I'll repeat that again. Satisfied are people who are content with finding an option that meets their needs rather than searching for the absolute best. Now, even an interesting thing to discuss and talk about, because in the modern dating age and world, I think not a lot of people are in the second group. I think many people are in the first group, and you're classified as a maximizer, and you're simply just trying to find the best option. You have to remember a paradox of choice. Eventually you run out of time, and you're no longer in your 20s, you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. Before you know it, you're in your 70s, and you have still not chosen a partner or mate, and you continue to search for the best. And by then, you ran out of options because your dating pool is no longer the same as men and women in their 20s. Now you have to look for men and women in their 70s. And to the people in their 70s listening to this, there's still hope, but it's a different world than when you were 20 and 30s. So pay close attention to which group are you in. Are you a maximizer? Do you strive to just try to find the absolute best and you can never settle? Or are you a satisfier, and you're content with finding an option that meets your needs? It just meets your basic needs. You know, that's a good enough option. It's better. A good enough option is better than continuously looking for something for the rest of your life or never finding anything, because you're going to end up alone, full of disappointment and regret. So better to just be, I'm satisfied. This match, they're good enough. They meet my basic needs. They have the job, they have the car, it's fine. Instead of continuously trying to find the best, which may never happen. And then let it along. So again, not my words. This is Barry Schwartz's paradox of choice. I just think it's interesting. So some other concepts is regret and self-blame. So when faced with too many choices, individuals may feel responsible for any negative outcomes, leading to self-blame and dissatisfaction. So meaning, since you had too many choices and you kept swiping and going on endless dates, you never found anybody, what happens is you regret when you get older in your 40s, 50s, 60s, life filled with regret, thinking, I really regret going on a million days for 50 years of my life, and I never just picked anybody. So that's a terrible feeling, and it's full of regret. And then you do self-blame, and you just blame yourself the whole time. And now you're full of regret and blame. And you're really not a happy person. That's not how you want to end up. So pay attention to that concept that Barry Schwartz explains in this book. Again, these are not my words. This is Barry Schwartz's book that explains these concepts. I'm just giving you an overview about these concepts. The next concept is called opportunity costs, and the feeling that by choosing one option, you're missing out on the benefits of all the other options you didn't choose. So that's an interesting point. I'll say it again. Opportunity cost. The feeling that by choosing one option, you are missing out on the benefits of all the other options you didn't choose. So that's another analysis paralysis thing where you think that let me match with this guy or girl, and just because I chose this person, now I think I missed out on someone else. That's not the correct way to think. You know, again, you want to fall in the category of being a satisfier, which is, you know what, this is good enough option, I'm going to take it, and then boom, you take it. That's it. But if you're stuck in the maximizer, can't stop going back and forth between making a decision. So, and giving somebody a chance, allowing them to really grow with you potentially is also something I add in there. Let's talk about the implications it talks about in the book. One of them is reduced anxiety. So if you limit your choices, individuals can experience less anxiety and stress. Meaning, instead of having Bumble, Tinder, Hinge, you make your best choice and you just go with it. And you experience, whatever relationship, career, financial choice you made. And based on his book, it says you will experience less anxiety and stress. And I agree. Another thing is greater satisfaction. Focusing on good enough rather than perfection can lead to higher levels of satisfaction with decisions. So again, if you focus on good enough decisions, like this person was good enough, this job is good enough, my car is good enough, I need the perfect part, I need the perfect car, I need the perfect job, it would move to higher levels of satisfaction with decisions. And I'm assuming the way you're measuring your satisfaction is how do you feel, your emotions, how happy the decision you made with your career, your life, your finances, or your partner. And then lastly, you have improved decision-making, which is understanding the paradox. Understanding the paradox can help individuals make more effective decisions by setting limits on their choices. So that's another really interesting point. You get better at making decisions because you're able to limit your choices of what you want to do. And then your decision-making power and your habits and your traits improve. So some practical advice for you guys is to embrace voluntary constraints. Be willing to set limits on your freedom of choice and make decisions more manageable. So I'll say it again. Embrace voluntary constraints. So you must be willing to set limits on your freedom of choice to make decisions more manageable. Okay, so you have to have the discipline to stop swiping so much, pick some people that you like, stop looking at hundreds of thousands of different careers and pick a choice you think would be the best for ours or really anything in your life. The second practical advice is aim to be a satisfier, not a maximizer. You want to become a satisfier, not a maximizer. So a satisfier is someone who aims to find a good enough option rather than constantly searching for the perfect one. And I hear this all the time. I'm going to attract my perfect partner. I'm going to attract the perfect one. The reality is you're not. You're not going to actually attract the perfect partner, perfect exact person that you want. They'll maybe come in a different form, with some flaws. So I agree with Barry when he says, aim to find a good enough option. So this is good enough. I don't say settle for much less than what you think you want, but make a decision on someone that's good enough that fits most of the boxes that you're looking for. But don't fall into the trap of trying to get the perfect partner that has perfect everything, because you'll never find them. Nobody's perfect. Bone filled and self-blame. That's what Barry Schwartz says. And lastly, focus on what matters. Prioritize choices that are truly important and ignore the noise. Ignore the other stuff and the fluff you see online. And if you found this talk interesting or insightful in any way, please drop a comment, a like, and don't forget to subscribe. Stay tuned for more episodes. Thanks everyone for this.